Chuck Fresh with Computer Care Clinic, and here's your tip of the year. This is a good one. And we used to sell this thing called virus-free or virus-proof internet. Now, we all know there's nothing that's virus-proof. It's a little bit more virus-resistant than anything else. But the beauty of the solution we used to sell for people who got a lot of virus infections because they surfed the internet and went to places, well, they said they went to places they shouldn't go to. But in my opinion, that's what the internet's for. You have endless freedom to go and search and look for whatever you want. It's the information age. That's what you're supposed to do. So there's no such thing as not supposed to go anywhere. And the beauty of this thing is if it does get infected, you just delete it and open up another one. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a company called, actually, I think Oracle bought it. But there was a program called VirtualBox. And Oracle owns it now. I think it was owned by Sun. But you can go to virtualbox.org. It's actually still free, which is pretty amazing. And you can use this for Windows environments. But what we used it for was a couple of versions of Linux, the Linux operating system, because there's such a small distribution of Linux in the world that virus writers or malware writers didn't really pay attention to it. Well, probably until recently. The whole Linux thing is built on a similar shell, a Unix shell, that the Mac operating system, the Apple operating systems are built on. So, first thing you need to do is get the VirtualBox, the program itself, and you need to install that. You can install that on any version of Windows, Windows XP, Windows Vista 7, 8, 10, 20, whatever's going on now. And you always want to get the latest ones if you can. And just go to virtualbox.org, and right there on their homepage, I believe it's on their homepage, it takes you right to the downloads. If not, just navigate and find downloads, and you'll find it there. And then you just download this thing. It's not too big. I'm using Firefox, so it's going to make me save it about 112 megabytes. So you download this, and then you're going to want something else too. You're going to want the extension pack. So, and what that does is it gives you a little bit more functionality in terms of being able to use USB devices and other add-on devices. So even if you don't know how to use Linux, you can kind of poke around with it, and if you hate it, just delete it. This gives you an environment within Windows. So you keep your Microsoft Windows, and you just double-click on an icon, and boom, it opens up a Linux shell, and you can search the internet and do all your stuff using Firefox, which is very similar to the Windows environment. And then when you're done surfing the internet and you want to go to sites that you know and do real work, then you just go right back to Windows and use the Windows programs. So let's go ahead and get this installed and see what we got. All right, so I've got VirtualBox here. It's 5.014, blah, blah, blah at this time. So just double click on it and begin the installation process. All right, so you know how to install things, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. You can leave everything on, whether you're using it or not. It's got USB support, some networking support, and all this stuff you do need in order for it to share Windows resources. So it actually installs some kind of conduit in between Windows and the virtual environment. You don't have to worry about this. Just leave it all there. Let the default install roll all through. It won't affect anything else on your computer. I promise. I've done this 1,000 times. So let's go ahead and let this roll through, and I won't bore you with the install. And once it's done, we'll take a look at how to use the VirtualBox. This is the first step. The second thing you could do while we're waiting is you can go to, now you have to pick your flavor of Linux that you want to run. One of the most popular ones, and one of the, in my opinion, the easiest to use is probably the Ubuntu environment. It's free, it's open source. A lot of developers are working on this because it's so popular. As a matter of fact, I got turned on to it because Dell was selling computers with Ubuntu several years ago when we were still doing our business stuff. So you just want to go to ubuntu.com, ubuntu.com, and then go to download, and then you want the desktop. You can, there's all kinds of different flavors of it. And so I'm going to go with 15 because actually I haven't played with that one. I've been doing 14 for a while. Now this is a big download. It's about 1.1 gigabytes. So it's going to take a while for this guy to download, depending on your internet speed. So go ahead and let that download because that's phase 2 of what we're going to do once we get the VirtualBox environment all squared away. Yeah, the installation's pretty quick. I guess the longest part of this process is downloading the Ubuntu software. So we've got the VirtualBox Manager installed. Again, this is free. There's some other ones too. Some other people like other virtual environments. Some of them are paid. There's VMware and some other stuff. The player, I believe, is still free. And there's some other competing products out there too. But this one seems to be the most stable, and it's worked in a majority of our installations. We stuck with the Oracle one while it's still free. All right, so we downloaded the other guide too, the VirtualBox extension pack. And now that VirtualBox is installed, I can go ahead and double click on this thing. Now this gives you some additional functionality. It enhances some USB connections. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what it does, but it makes VirtualBox better. We had a VirtualBox expert here who has gone on to become a software engineer. So you want to install this VirtualBox add-on pack here. So you want to install that before you start installing your virtual environment. We have our VirtualBox open here, and there's nothing here. It's brand new. It's fresh. It's nicely installed. Everything looks to be working okay. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come up. So what I'm going to do is click New. So I want to put a new virtual environment into my VirtualBox. So I can call it whatever I want. I used to call it virus, free, internet. This is a free form typing space. You can call it whatever you want. It'll just call the, it'll just give it a name to the shortcut. But really, it's going to be Ubuntu. And again, you can install any version of Linux that you want to here. But I type Ubuntu, it automatically recognizes that it is a Linux environment. And again, you can install virtual Windows in here. We have a lot of customers who still run Windows XP in these little windows because they have some software that's not compatible with Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 10. And this gives them the backwards functionality if you still need to run that sort of thing. People who run ham radio programs and some other stuff. So in this case, we're going to do Linux, and we tell it what we want to do. And we're going to do a 64-bit. And you can see all the other distributions of Linux here. There's all kinds of stuff here. Mint is another popular one. A lot of people like to run. We played with that too, but it ended up being slow on a lot of people's older computers, and Ubuntu seemed to be a little more responsive. On older computers, by older, I mean anything older than 6 or 7 years old, single core processor will run an older flavor of Ubuntu, even going back as far as 10, and it appears to do just fine. All right, so you want to tell it how much memory you have. This computer has a total of 8 gigs of RAM, this particular one, so I like to give it about. Now, the thing is, when you run this virtual PC, it's automatically going to suck up all this RAM and take it away from other applications. So if you want to run this simultaneously with other stuff in Windows, you have to be really careful about how much memory you allocate. So I find that the Linux does pretty well with about 1.5 to 2 gigs. You don't really need a whole lot. In this case, I'll give it 2 just so I have a lot of headroom. And then, and again, it's going to dedicate that and throw that right into the virtual environment. So you take it away from everything else. And you still have virtual memory, of course, if you haven't turned that off. And it's going to do something called create a virtual hard disk. So you need to have, well, as much hard drive space as you can to allocate to this thing. And it'll keep making it bigger if it needs to. And it starts out with an 8 gigabyte virtual partition. So it's going to take 8 gigs off of your hard drive and say, all right, I'm going to use this for VirtualBox, and you can't use it for anything else. So make sure you've got a little bit of hard drive space if you're going to pull this thing off. And I'm going to create a virtual hard drive. And it asks you the file type. You can just leave the defaults here. There's some of the other ones which are compatible with some of the other like Parallels and some of the other virtual PC environments. The VDI is what VirtualBox works with, and it probably works a little bit better, though I haven't tried any of the other ones. I really hadn't had a need to. Leave it in the comments below if you've had better luck with something else. All right, I'm going to do dynamically allocated, which means that your choices here is if you grow, if you store a lot of stuff in your Linux environment, if you really, really like it and you use it every day, it'll get bigger if you need it to get bigger. If you do a fixed size, you could run out of space and have to create a whole new partition. So I go with dynamically allocated. I've never run over the 8 gigs, and hopefully you won't either. And again, you can use this slider and make it as big or as little as you can, and 8 seems to be fine. So 7, 8, whatever you want to do here. Again, I've never run into a problem with it. Another reason this is important too, you want to keep it as small as possible, but not to a point where it will cripple you. Because what we're going to do is copy this partition when we're done with it. So in the event, as we said before, if we somehow get malware in our Ubuntu installation, we can just delete one and we have another copy sitting around that's perfect. And we can just jump right on that. And I'll show you how cool that is, how easy that is. All right, now before we start this installation, we're going to change some of the settings here. And I always forget to do this. I find it very helpful to go to video memory. And you could disagree with this. Some other people have better luck with it and some people don't. But I drag the video memory all the way up to 128 megabytes. Give me a little more headroom, a little bit more flexibility on the resolution. Again, I don't know if this matters or not. And you can also change the monitor count if you wanted to run it on multiple monitors. And then I always click enable 3D acceleration in case you want to do some gaming or something on there. It'll share the resources on your video card and make it a little more peppy. Everything else is cool. The audio is going to share. Your network is going to share with Windows. You can enable serial ports if you have that kind of desire, especially if you're running ham radio stuff in Windows XP, if you choose to do that virtually. And it does USB 3, and if you want to do that. And you can also share folders too. But that's a little more advanced. We'll do an advanced video later on. User interface. This is a little bar that gives you a whole bunch of little icons here, and you can check which ones you want. The default, again, in most of these situations is just fine. Just leave them alone. Advanced here shows you where it's going to put it. And, all right, there's some other advanced stuff we won't get into right now. I'll try to keep this easy. All right, so now I've got my video set to 128. I did 3D acceleration. Again, I don't know if that's going to help or not with anything, but I click it and seem to have really good results with it. So let's go ahead and open this Ubuntu machine. And again, we open it by double-clicking on the icon. It says Ubuntu. And again, we can have a whole list of them here. You can have as many as your hard drive will store. And then we have to select our startup disk. So just like it doesn't automatically install Ubuntu, you have to do it just like you're installing an operating system on a brand new computer. It's just not going to happen by itself unless you buy it out of the box, which we didn't do. We're creating our own. It's kind of like building your own computer. So if you've never done that before, now you can tell everybody you built your own computer. So we're going to go to downloads, where I downloaded that Ubuntu 15, and it is a CD DVD image. And it's got the ISO indicator at the end. And go ahead and click start, and it's going to begin. You can close all this stuff. It's about capturing your mouse pointer, really not important at this point. So it's going to begin the installation of Ubuntu, and you're going to see all kinds of really weird, trippy code all over your screen. Don't worry about that. It does fine. It may actually show you a couple errors too. Again, you can just not even worry about that. Just hit the escape button on your keyboard if that happens, and it'll just continue with the installation. So we're going to let this guy roll through. It'll take about 30 to 45 minutes. There's the trippy code on there. And we'll let that go. And once we get into the operating system, we'll show you a little bit more about what it does. All right, so we want to install Ubuntu. Now, what's really neat about Ubuntu, you could theoretically burn this image to a DVD and run your computer off it. It's god-awfully slow because it's running the operating system off a CD or a DVD, which is very slow. So if you didn't want to commit to Ubuntu, you could do try Ubuntu, but that's kind of silly. So we're going to install Ubuntu on this virtual hard drive. Remember, we're not installing it over Windows. We're still going to have our Windows installation, which is great. Typically, I will do download updates while installing, so I don't have to worry about a lot of that later. And then there's a MP3 plugin if you want to play music through MP3s. You do need a decoder for that. And we'll go ahead and do that too. It'll download and install that for free. And it'll just be ready to go as soon as you jump into Ubuntu. So go ahead and do that, and erase disk. There's nothing on there, so it's kind of silly, so just leave that as the default. You can also encrypt this too. If you have worries about your files or whatever you're going to save in this installation, you can encrypt it. So if somebody did get hold of your computer or your virtual installation, your data would be encrypted and password protected. But I'm just going to let that go. And then I'm going to install now. And whatever, these are all virtual. Again, you're not affecting your Windows hard drive whatsoever, so there's nothing to worry about here. And let's let it rock and roll. We're going to tell it where we are. We're in Florida. We have the same time zone as New York, which is beautiful. Let that roll. I'm going to do US English. You've got a whole bunch of languages to choose from, which is really neat. Again, developers from all over the world are pitching it. So you just give it a name. So I'm just going to write me, and you can write a password. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to click and log in automatically so I don't have to worry about a password. It still will ask me for the password I created if I need to do administrative type things, like install new software or updates. So keep track of that password because you will need it. All right, so we'll go ahead and let this rock and roll through, and we'll come back and take a look at the next step when we get there. All right, it's telling us our installation is complete. It took about 30 minutes, and we'll go ahead and restart it, just like you would with any typical computer. Sometimes you'll see some errors and some weird stuff in here. Again, ignore it. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff. If your screen freezes, just hit the escape button or enter, or just close it and reopen it, and then it comes up fine. In this case, she's really locked up, so I'll just close it like this, and I'm just going to power off the machine. And then I'll just restart it by double-clicking on it, just like an icon, just like any other program. Just double-click on it and starts it back up. You can close this, don't need that anymore. And this will restart my Ubuntu machine. And it's going to continue installing all the updates and all the files that we've already downloaded. There'll still be a bunch of updates just like Windows. All right, now it's booted up. This is the Linux desktop within a window here. So fortunately, in this case, it has found the video drivers. In some cases, you have to do some kind of strange stuff to change your resolution. Otherwise, it'll be too small, and then when you open an internet page, it ends up flowing off the page, which is not cool. So first thing I'm going to look at here is my settings, and it's an icon on the left here. It looks like a little gear, just like in most operating systems. And then I'm going to look at my displays and see if I can change it. Yeah, I've got 1024 is as much as I'm going to get here. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go to software and updates, because the max resolution I'm getting is 1024 by 768. I'm going to need a little bit more than that. You don't need more than that, but it's nice to have it. So as you can see here, there's this InnoTech, whatever this is, VirtualBox graphics adapter. Right now it's not using it, so I'm going to use the virtualization from the that additional software we installed. And I'm going to turn all these on and then click on the use the virtualization and use a manually installed drivers, apply changes. So it will do those updates, and then we will have to type my password in. This is where you need that password. And it authenticates you as an administrator, or as they call in Linux, a super user. And then applies the changes, and then you can restart, and then you'll have the flexibility to have a little bit better resolution on your screen. I think we have to restart it. And also what you want to do is look at your updates here, which is under System Settings and then Updates, and it'll tell you that there's some updates. You can leave all the default settings there. If there's an update, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to update my Ubuntu while I'm at it before I restart it. Again, for updates, it's going to require your passwords. Make sure you jot that down somewhere. So it takes a little bit to get started, just like you would in Windows. If you install Windows, there's probably 100 or so updates since the image disk that you used was manufactured. So you would definitely want to get those security and stability patches. So I'm going to go ahead and get all those done, and then we're going to reboot the computer, and we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll show you some of the basics. Remember, this is just a basic introductory video. There's plenty of information at ubuntu.com, including some manuals for those of you who like to read up about these things, and there's tons of YouTube videos and an incredible plethora of user information and secrets and tips and tricks that people who have been using Ubuntu and other Linux distributions have been successful with for years. So it's all over the internet, and you can learn as much or as little as you want to. The whole point of this thing is to give Windows users another avenue to safely surf the internet without having to worry about damaging their system with malware or viruses. And then we'll show you how you can do that in a moment once we get this thing all squared away. All right, the updates are finished, so it wants you to restart the computer to apply those updates. I'll go ahead and show you how to. There's a couple different ways to shut this thing down. You can do it through the VirtualBox environment itself, or you can click this little doodad up here, and it's got the shutdown, the logout commands, and you can even log in as a guest session. Got a lot of functionality up here. So what I'm going to do is click on that. It looks like a little gear power button kind of thing, so I'm going to shut it down. And it's going to ask me what I want to do. And hover over these guys, you can restart or shut down. So I'm going to restart it. Go ahead and restart my VirtualBox. And go ahead and apply those updates, which it also updated Firefox automatically, which is very nice. So I don't have to worry about doing that manually. I have to be honest, it's very difficult to install some of these software programs in Linux if you don't know your share of code and how to work in a Unix-based environment. It's a little tricky. All right, our system rebooted with those updates, and it looks worse than before. So I'm going to go back here to settings. And then I really wish this would happen automatically, but it doesn't for some reason because of the virtual environment, I suppose. So I'm going to go to displays, and now I can drag down my display and make it as big as I want in full HD if I want, which I will do. And then click on, if I can see, apply over here. And there we go. Look at that. And then click on keep as configuration, and bang, we're good to go. Go ahead and close that. Now I've got a full screen environment, and I can make it full screen, and I can see everything on here. So this is our Ubuntu desktop. And you can change the background, configure it, make different pretty colors. The only thing I've had problems with is putting shortcuts on the desktop, which apparently is a way to do, but I'm just not smart enough. It's not that I'm not smart enough. I just don't have time to figure it out. But you and your Ubuntu.com repository, you'll be able to find out all that stuff. So I'll show you the important stuff here. A couple of things. It comes with a whole bunch of software built into it. It comes with the Libre, we're free Office Writer, and a spreadsheet program, and the Impress, which is like a PowerPoint clone. So you'll be able to create documents on here for free, and it's got spell check built into it, and save it as a Word document and then distribute it all over the world. So you've got all that stuff already built in. You don't need to install it because it's already here, which is real nice. And it does a good job. Spell check. You can see it underlines just like it does, and then you right click on it, and hopefully the right answer is there. Now to close things, you're going to see the, instead of a right hand corner, you're going to see the X and the minimize and the full screen in the upper left hand corner. It's like a reddish X. Close that to click that to close something, and you can save it and do whatever you want to do. File system is a little different. It's along the lines of the Mac, kind of how that works. Every user gets their own home folder with desktop documents, downloads, music, pictures, blah, blah, blah. And you can save to whatever you want and organize these, and also back it up through a USB device, which is real nice. And that'll pop up there too when you plug that in. But the most important thing that we sell anyway is the web browsing capability of this guy. So it uses the Firefox browser, which is built in. You can also download Opera, and there's some other browsers you can download. But Firefox gives you the flexibility of integrating between Windows and the Linux operating system. You can actually import all your bookmarks and your settings to this particular version of Firefox. So you don't have to recreate it all over again. So there are lots of videos and stuff will do that. Actually, we're going to do a video on how to import your Firefox settings. So check our YouTube page and like and subscribe. So when that comes up and live, you'll be the first one to view that one. So again, it's very, very difficult, but not impossible, to infect a Linux operating system. Again, maybe some idiot out there is going, oh, you go to this website and it's going to get malware right away. But typically you're not going to do that. So you're going to search for, I don't know, car parts or whatever you want to do here. And if you happen to click on something that has malware, you're much less likely to become infected than you would in a Windows operating system. A lot of people search for celebrities. You can search for music, movies, virtually anything you want without having to worry about infecting your Windows operating system, because these two things don't talk. They don't exchange files. They can exchange files because they're built on different architectures, which is really neat. So again, Firefox, if you're familiar with it, you can go ahead and create your own bookmarks and start all over again. And the same way you use Firefox in the Windows environment without going in being too wordy. Again, to close things, it's the little X on the upper left-hand side, or you can just minimize it. And it'll throw it right here and a little indicator right there. As far as email goes, you can use your Google, Gmail, Yahoo Mail, MSN, AOL Mail. You can use any website that you can use in a Windows environment right here if you're using webmail, which most people are. So you get AOL.com. and all your stuff's going to be there. The page will look just like it does in your Windows environment once you sign in. So of course you have to remember your password. And Firefox will save that, and you can log into Firefox and save all your passwords and stuff. As far as other stuff goes, it has this software center here, and you've got a bunch of stuff built into it, including Thunderbird Mail, which was the Mozilla, sort of not equivalent, but the similar functionality to Microsoft Outlook or Outlook Express if you came from the Windows XP or Windows Live Mail. So it's got a lot more fully functional aspects to it, like address book storage, and you can create multiple folders. And again, it's free. A lot of support available online for the Thunderbird program. A lot of people like it. Real easy to set up. And and use, and you can also migrate this between Windows and the Linux operating system because they use the same database files, which is real nice. Well, here's the thing about a virtual environment. It gives you a couple of ways to close your system if you want to go back to your Windows. You can click the X in the upper right-hand corner, which is the Windows close, and it'll ask you what do you want to do. I have a couple of options here. You can shut it down. You can power off the machine, kind of the same thing. Or, without having to wait for it to boot up every time, you could just save the machine state, which is kind of like a hibernate. So I usually do that. I'll click OK. It'll save the machine state. So if you've got a couple of websites up that you want to go back to later, you can leave them up there. The next time you power this virtual environment on, it'll be there waiting for you, which is real nice. It doesn't take long. So I've got this environment saved here. And what we're going to do here is, remember we told you if something happens, if the off chance that this does get infected with malware or viruses or whatever, we can always just open another one and then throw the other one away. Now, the only thing about that is if you've saved anything, you're going to throw those saved files away too if you do delete that, so just be aware of that. So you definitely want to continue doing backups to your bookmarks or any files that you save that you want to keep, just in case that virtual environment gets hosed up. So once I've got everything set the way I like it, which I have done already for this particular purpose, I'm going to right click on this guy and then I'm going to clone it. And what's that going to do? It's going to, well, I don't need to do that. I'm going to go ahead and clone that system. So I've got that virtual machine. You've got a couple of options here. You always want to do a full clone. If you do a link clone, it's going to require the original installation. If that's all hosed up, I don't want to copy any files over from that because I don't want to copy the junk over. So I'm going to do a full clone, which takes a little bit more disk space, up to 8 gigs or more, depending on how much stuff you got stored in there. And what it does is it creates a brand new virtual image, exactly like the one we've just done, where we have the video settings the way we like it. We have the software all set up. We have the updates all done through today anyway. There'll always be more updates coming. And it takes a couple of minutes for it to create another virtual disk image. Now, again, the beauty of this is if something happens to the first installation, you could just roll on over to the second one, and it's perfect, just like it was right now, without any malware, without any problems. And then you can just throw your old one away. And you can do this as many times as you want. And once this is done, it'll show up as a second machine, and we'll come back as soon as that's ready to go. So that took about 15 minutes to copy that image over. And now you can see I've got two things here in my virtual box manager. I have my original Ubuntu operating system and the clone. So let's go ahead and double click on that to turn that virtual machine on. And you will see that it looks exactly like the original machine. So again, the reason we do this is in the event one of the Ubuntu machines gets messed up or damaged or infected with malware. Again, not likely, but it could happen. And you will see that everything is just as it was in that original. And you can do this as many times as you want. You can create 5 different ones. And another reason you might want to do that is each individual user might want to have their own. So instead of setting up individual users within the same virtual environment, they can each have their own virtual environment so that another user in your home using the virtual machine, they won't mess up yours and, you know, those kind of things. I can't even predict the amount of reasons you'd like to have everybody else have their own machine, but there's definitely a good idea to do so. And I believe in backup, man. Backup everything. So that is, in a nutshell, how to set up a virtual environment using Ubuntu Linux. Again, you can download any flavor of Linux that you want and try a bunch of them out. Just create a new virtual machine, install the different flavors of Linux in each one of them. Again, you're only limited by your disk space. So if you got a giant terabyte or 2 terabyte hard drive, you've got plenty of room to mess with. If each one's 8 gigabytes, you could shoot literally, theoretically, hundreds of these things. So again, just click on new and tell it what you want to do. If you type in Linux or Mint or whatever you want to put in there, you can download those from their respective websites, and most of them are free. And you can familiarize yourself with Linux and not have to worry about malware or viruses. And if you do get malware, then you just go onto your cloned installation. Again, you can clone this as many times as you want. So if you have any comments, please leave them below. If you have any tips or any links to other helpful Linux sites, you can put those down there too. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. My name is Chuck Fresh with Computer Care Clinic. That's our tip of the day.